The world was a desiccated husk. Where once verdant forests had stretched to the horizon, there was now only a skeletal architecture of barren trees. Juniper stood at the precipice of life, a solitary sentinel guarding the last remnants of a dying world. Her research station, a stark, angular structure, clung to the side of a mountain, a defiant assertion of human ingenuity against nature's surrender. From her vantage point, she could see for miles, a monochromatic expanse broken only by the jagged peaks of the mountain range. The sky was a perpetual, washed-out blue, devoid of clouds. It was a world stripped bare, its beauty replaced by a stark, austere reality. Inside the station, however, was a different world. Rows of hydroponic bays hummed with artificial life. Here, under the precise calibration of light and temperature, a curated collection of survivors thrived. Each plant was a testament to hope, a stubborn refusal to succumb to the planet's despair. They were Juniper's children, her reason for being. But lately, something was wrong. A creeping malaise had settled over her botanical sanctuary. Leaves were curling, petals were prematurely browning. A panic was beginning to gnaw at her. She had spent a lifetime studying these plants, understanding their every nuance. But this was a riddle she couldn't solve. Juniper's eyes darted between her samples and her microscope. The once healthy specimens were now a canvas of decay. Under the microscope, she saw a microscopic dance of death, the choreography of a pathogen she had never encountered before. Her mind raced with hypotheses, but none fit the pattern she was witnessing. The disease was not natural, it was something else, something engineered. The silence of the station was broken by the insistent beeping of her computer. Results were coming in from her latest batch of tests. Her heart sank as she scanned the data. It was as if the plants were being targeted, as if someone, or something, had designed this blight specifically to eradicate them. Juniper felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. The implications were dire. If this disease had been created, then it could be weaponized. The few surviving ecosystems could be wiped out, leaving the planet utterly barren. The thought was too horrifying to entertain for long. With a steely resolve, she set aside her fear and turned to her computer. If this was a man-made scourge, then it could be countered by human ingenuity. She began to search through decades of archived research, looking for any clue that might lead her to the source of the disease. Days turned into weeks as Juniper pored over data, her sleep becoming more fitful with each passing night. The plants grew weaker, their vibrant greens fading to sickly yellows and browns. Her desperation grew with each failed attempt to isolate the pathogen or find a cure. One evening, as the sun painted the horizon a mournful red, she stumbled upon a set of encrypted files buried deep within the archives. Her heart pounded as she deciphered the code. The documents revealed a secret government program, one that had been experimenting with bioengineered organisms as a means to control the planet's dwindling resources. Her stomach twisted as she read the mission briefs. They had unleashed these organisms into the wild, hoping to control the spread of invasive species and boost the growth of crops. But something had gone terribly wrong. The organisms had mutated, and now they threatened to destroy the very thing they were meant to save. Juniper knew she had to act. She couldn't let this be the end of the world she had sworn to preserve. With a trembling hand, she composed a message to the few other scientists who remained in the world, sharing her discovery and her fears. As she sent the encrypted file into the vast emptiness of the digital ether, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps together, they could find a way to fight back against this unseen enemy. Perhaps they could still save the planet. Days of silence stretched into a week, each moment heavier than the last. The plants in her care grew more listless by the hour, their once resilient stems now drooping under the weight of the unseen plague. The air in the station grew thick with the scent of decay, a constant reminder of the battle she was fighting. Finally, a response arrived. It was from a fellow botanist, Dr. Castillo, who had been working on a similar problem in a distant region. His message was grim, but held a kernel of hope. He had identified the mutated organism, a hybrid of fungus and bacteria, and had isolated a potential antidote. But it was risky, requiring a delicate balance of chemicals that could either save or doom the plants. Juniper's heart raced as she read through Dr. Castillo's findings. The instructions were complex, but she had no choice. If she didn't try, she would be sentencing her beloved plants to a painful death. With shaking hands, she mixed the solution, her eyes never leaving the slowly dying specimens. The first inoculation was a gamble. She administered the serum to the most infected plant, a rare orchid that had once been the pride of her collection. Hours passed, the silence in the station punctuated only by the hiss of the air filtration system. The orchid's leaves twitched and then, ever so slightly, began to unfurl. The browning edges of the petals regained their vibrancy. It was working. Emboldened by this small victory, Juniper moved from bay to bay, treating each plant with meticulous care. The color returned to their leaves, and the sickly smell of decay began to recede. As the days went by, the station transformed once again into a bastion of life. But the victory was bittersweet. The knowledge of what humans had wrought weighed heavily on her, a burden she knew she could never fully cast off. The path ahead was fraught with challenges. There were more plants to save, more secrets to uncover, and a world to rebuild. Yet, as she gazed upon the orchid that had been the first to be healed, Juniper felt a surge of determination. If she could fight back the tide of destruction here, then perhaps there was a chance for the planet below. The whispers of the leaves and the artificial breeze of the station seemed to echo her thoughts. It was time to take the fight to the source. Time to uncover the truth behind the government's folly and ensure that such a tragedy never occurred again. But first, she had to save her sanctuary, the last bastion of nature's diversity in a world that had turned its back on her. With renewed purpose, Juniper set to work, her mind racing with strategies and plans. She would need allies, resources, and a way to spread the cure beyond her station. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: she would not let the flame of life be extinguished on her watch. Her first step was to reach out to Dr. Castillo. The encrypted line crackled to life, and she watched the static-filled screen as his worried face appeared. The two scientists exchanged notes, their conversation a mix of urgent whispers and furious typing. They agreed to pool their knowledge and resources, forming an underground network of like-minded individuals determined to fight the silent killer that threatened the planet. Juniper's days grew longer as she worked tirelessly to produce the antidote in larger quantities. The once desolate station buzzed with newfound activity, a beacon of hope in a lifeless world. Each new batch of the serum was a victory, a promise of life to the plants that clung to existence. Her sleep was plagued by nightmares of a world entirely devoid of color, but she pushed through the fatigue, driven by her mission. One by one, the plants began to recover. The orchid she had first treated stood tall once more, its petals a vibrant symphony of purples and pinks. It was a symbol of their collective struggle, a testament to the resilience of nature and the human spirit. As the last of her samples showed signs of recovery, Juniper knew it was time to take the battle outside. Armed with her precious serum and a newfound ally in Dr. Castillo, she ventured into the ravaged lands below. The barren wasteland was a stark contrast to the vibrant oasis she had left behind, a stark reminder of the urgency of their quest. Together, they set out to inoculate the wild plants, moving from one dwindling oasis to the next. Each step was fraught with danger as they navigated the harsh terrain and evaded the government patrols that sought to suppress their efforts. Yet, with every plant they saved, Juniper felt a glimmer of hope grow within her. The journey was not without setbacks. The disease had spread further than they had feared, and some plants were too far gone to be saved. But each success fueled their determination. They encountered other survivors along the way, some desperate, some hostile, but all touched by the bleakness of the world they inhabited. Juniper shared her knowledge with those who would listen, teaching them to recognize the signs of infection and how to administer the cure. Word of their work spread, and slowly, a network of guardians grew around them, people willing to risk everything to bring life back to the planet. Their mission was far from over, but as they stood on the edge of a recovering forest, the whispers of the leaves grew stronger. It was a chorus of rebirth, a promise that with tenacity and care, the world could be restored. The journey ahead was long and fraught with peril, but Juniper knew she would not walk it alone. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land. In the distance, the silhouettes of new growth stretched towards the sky, a testament to the power of hope and the indomitable will of life. With her heart swelling with a mix of pride and sorrow, Juniper turned to Dr. Castillo. "We can do this," she said, her voice firm. "We will heal the earth, one plant at a time." And with that, they continued their march into the twilight, hand in hand, united in their quest to restore the balance that had been lost. The future was uncertain, but the seeds of change had been planted. The world would either rise from the ashes or fall to the ravages of the disease. It was a battle that would demand every ounce of their strength, every last shred of their determination. But Juniper was ready. For the sake of the plants she loved, she would not rest until the planet was once again a verdant tapestry of biodiversity. Their journey took them through desolate valleys and across treacherous mountains, each step a testament to their unyielding spirit. They constantly encountered pockets of survivors, some of whom had given up hope, others who had turned to desperate measures to survive. But in every face, Juniper saw a spark of the same fierce will that burned within her. They were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for a future where the whispers of the leaves and the rustle of the grass could be heard once more. The government, sensing the threat to their control, had intensified their efforts to suppress the spread of the antidote. Spy drones patrolled the skies, and armed patrols roamed the wasteland, seeking to eliminate any sign of the rebellion. Yet, the network of guardians grew stronger, passing on the knowledge of the cure through whispers and coded messages. Juniper and Dr. Castillo's work became legend among the people, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in despair. They taught, they learned, and they adapted. The serum evolved, becoming more potent and easier to produce. The government's grip began to slip as the disease retreated before their unyielding efforts. But the enemy was not just the disease. It was the very system that had allowed it to fester, the greed and apathy that had brought the planet to the brink of destruction. And so, as the plants grew stronger, so too did the rebellion. With each new ally they gained, their voice grew louder, their message clearer. The time had come for the truth to be told, for the world to face the consequences of its actions and to choose a new path. The air was thick with tension as they approached the first of the government's agricultural facilities, a bastion of control in a sea of decay. The facility was surrounded by a fence, the only thing standing between them and the possibility of salvation. As they prepared for the infiltration, Juniper felt a mix of fear and anticipation. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. The plan was simple but daring. They would sneak in under the cover of darkness, releasing the antidote into the air and water systems, allowing it to be absorbed by the very crops the government had hoped to control. It was a gamble, but it was one they had to take. With a deep breath, Juniper gripped the small vial of serum in her hand. It contained the essence of their hopes, the culmination of her life's work. As she approached the fence, she felt the eyes of the planet upon her, the whispers of the wind urging her forward. The lock on the gate clicked open under her practiced touch, and she slipped inside, her heart racing. The facility was a hive of activity, but she moved with the grace of a ghost, unseen and unheard. The rows of crops stretched out before her, an eerie echo of the natural world she had left behind. With trembling hands, she began to spray the serum, watching as the plants responded, their leaves unfurling and their stalks straightening. It was a moment of pure triumph, a silent declaration of war against the forces that had brought her world to its knees. But she knew it was only the beginning. The battle to reclaim the earth would be long and arduous, fraught with danger and sacrifice. Yet, as she emerged from the shadows, the first hints of dawn lighting the horizon, she felt a deep, unshakable belief that together, they could reshape the world. The whispers grew louder, the rustling of leaves becoming a roar. It was the sound of life fighting back, the sound of hope echoing across the desolate landscape. And as she stood there, surrounded by the fragile beginnings of a rebirth, Juniper realized that she was no longer alone. The earth itself was with her, a silent ally in the fight to preserve the delicate web of existence. The sun rose, casting a warm glow over the facility. It was a symbol of a new day, a promise that the world could heal if only they had the courage to try. With a final look at the recovering plants, Juniper turned to Dr. Castillo, who had been watching her from the shadows. "We've started something," she said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and determination. Dr. Castillo nodded, his eyes reflecting the same fire that burned within her. We've given the Earth a chance to fight back, he replied. Now we must spread the word and the cure before it's too late. Their mission grew bolder with each passing day. They recruited more scientists, hackers who could disseminate their message and disrupt the government surveillance, and even former soldiers who had seen the error of their ways. The network grew into a movement, a swell of green hope against the gray backdrop of despair. Together, they targeted the government strongholds, infiltrating labs and facilities to steal data, sabotage operations, and spread the antidote. Each victory brought new challenges as the authorities grew more desperate to maintain their grip on the dwindling resources. Juniper's research expanded beyond the immediate threat of the disease. She began to study the long-term effects of the bioengineered organisms, the potential for unforeseen consequences, and the possibility of reversing the damage done to the planet's ecosystems. Her mind raced with new ideas, her work fueled by the passion of those who had joined her cause. One evening, as they huddled around a flickering campfire in a makeshift camp, a young woman named Lila approached her. "Juniper," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I used to think the world was dead, that there was no point in fighting. But now, I see what you're doing and I believe." Juniper took Lila's hand, feeling the warmth of her newfound ally. "You're not just fighting for the plants," she said. "You're fighting for all of us. For every creature that ever drew breath on this planet." The whispers grew into a symphony, a crescendo of life that echoed across the wasteland. With each new victory, the tide of change grew stronger. People began to question the status quo, to demand a world where nature was not just an afterthought, but the very foundation of their existence. The government, once seemingly invincible, began to crumble from within. Defectors brought news of dissent in the ranks, of scientists who had seen the light and wished to help. The walls of secrecy and control were cracking, and through those cracks, the whispers of the leaves grew louder. Juniper felt a stirring in the air, a sense that the balance of power was shifting. With each plant they saved, each life they touched, they were writing a new chapter in the story of the Earth. As they marched towards the capital, the horizon grew greener, a promise of what lay ahead. The whispers grew clearer, the rustling of leaves turning into a chorus of voices that called for change. The city loomed before them, a monument to the folly of humanity. Yet, amidst the steel and glass, Juniper saw the first signs of rebirth. Sprouts pushed through the cracks in the pavement, reaching for the sky like the spirits of the lost forests. "We can do this," she said to her comrades, her voice strong and clear. "We will not only save the plants, but show the world what it has lost, and what it can become again." And with that, they stepped into the heart of the beast, ready to fight for the future of the planet and all its inhabitants. The whispers grew into a roar, a collective shout of defiance that resonated through the streets. The final confrontation was upon them, and Juniper felt the weight of her responsibility like never before. The fate of the Earth rested in her hands, in the vials of antidote she carried, and in the hearts of those who had joined her cause. The city was a maze of danger, but they moved with purpose, each member of the team playing their part in the grand plan. The whispers grew louder, guiding them through the shadows, leading them to the very source of the blight. As they approached the central lab, the whispers grew to a climax, and the air seemed to hum with the energy of life itself. The time had come to face the architects of the disease, to demand answers and justice. Juniper stepped into the room, the gleaming surfaces a stark contrast to the organic chaos of the world she had left behind. The scientists inside froze, their eyes widening in shock at the sight of the botanist and her band of rebels. The head researcher, Dr. Harper, stared at her with a mix of fear and anger. "What have you done?" Juniper demanded, her voice echoing in the sterile space. "You've played God with the very fabric of life." Dr. Harper's lip curled into a sneer. "We did what needed to be done," he spat. "You romanticize nature, but we've seen its true face. It's a resource to be controlled, not worshipped." The room grew tense, the whispers of the leaves outside seeming to grow quieter in anticipation of the confrontation. Juniper felt the rage boiling within her, a rage born of love and loss. "You're wrong," she said, her voice low and steady. "You've unleashed a monster, and now we all pay the price." The standoff was broken by the sound of shattering glass. Dr. Castillo had smashed a vial of the antidote, releasing the serum into the lab's air filtration system. The plants in the room visibly sighed with relief as the disease retreated from their leaves. The rebels moved swiftly, securing the lab and the precious data within. The whispers grew stronger, the plants in the city below responding to the sudden influx of life-giving mist. Juniper faced Dr. Harper, her eyes cold. "You will be held accountable for your crimes," she said. "But first, we must save what's left of this world." The scientist's defiance crumbled, and he nodded, defeated. "I'll help," he murmured, the reality of his folly finally sinking in. The whispers grew louder, a symphony of life and hope. The news of their victory spread, the whispers becoming a shout heard around the world. The government's grip began to slip as people saw the change happening before their eyes. The once desolate streets grew green with new life, the whispers of the leaves a constant reminder of the power of nature and the folly of human arrogance. Juniper's message resonated with the populace, sparking a global movement to restore the balance between humanity and the earth. The journey ahead was still fraught with danger and uncertainty, but Juniper felt a newfound strength within her. The whispers of the leaves had become the roar of a planet fighting back. And with every step she took, every plant she saved, she knew she was not just healing the earth. She was healing a part of herself, a connection to the world she had almost lost. The whispers grew into a song of rebirth, a melody that carried them forward into the future. It was a future filled with challenges, but it was a future of hope. A future where the whispers of the leaves would never again be silenced. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing to stay updated with our latest stories, give us a like if you want to see more, and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts.